Canada's consumer market is undergoing a major change, as buyers quietly turn away from American products and services. What does this silent boycott mean for the future of U.S. businesses and cultural influence? After the tariff policies introduced by the Trump administration in 2025, Canadian consumers did not protest loudly, but responded with a decisive change in buying habits. According to a Bloomberg economics survey, over 66% of Canadians reported reducing their use of American products and services, while 70% favored domestic or European alternatives in Q2 2025. Major American brands such as Walmart, Starbucks, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Amazon saw significant sales declines in Canada during this period. The drop in sales has forced many U.S. retail chains to cut jobs and close branches in Canada, directly affecting American workers in export, logistics, and international services. These changes ripple back to communities in the U.S. that depend on stable employment in companies tied to the Canadian market. McDonald's experienced its sharpest decline in customer visits since the COVID-19 pandemic, despite marketing efforts and menu updates. Many Canadian users have shared on Reddit and local news forums about canceling their Amazon Prime memberships as a form of protest, with several reporting successful account closures and refunds. This trend reflects a noticeable shift towards supporting local online platforms, like well.ca and regional stores, as Canadians vote with their wallets in response to recent U.S. trade policies. Nike reported a global sales drop of 9%, with Canada as the hardest hit market, as consumers shifted towards homegrown brands such as Vessi and Lululemon. Reduced revenue is forcing U.S. brands to scale down production, affecting factories, warehouses, and workers responsible for manufacturing, packaging, and supporting international markets. This contraction threatens livelihoods in American industrial sectors tied to exports. Companies like Coca-Cola have warned that tariffs and negative consumer sentiment in Canada could hurt sales. Harley-Davidson, facing a 25% tariff, saw Canadian sales drop 22%. Buyers opted for local brands like Triumph or Canadian electric motorcycles. Budweiser and KFC lost market share to Canadian beer and fast food chains such as Steam Whistle and St. Hubert. Beyond economic losses, this consumer boycott undermines American soft power. The cultural influence embodied by iconic brands and the American lifestyle is weakening in what was once a close allies market. This signals a broader challenge to U.S. international image and cultural ties. Top Canadian universities like UBC, Toronto, and McGill are reporting increased website visits from U.S. students exploring options to study in Canada. This shift stems from feelings of alienation, concerns over rising U.S. education costs, and a desire for a more respectful academic environment. The U.S. international education sector faces multi-billion-dollar losses in tuition revenue, straining university budgets and reducing employment opportunities for faculty and staff. This trend also diminishes America's global educational standing and influence among international students. Coca-Cola is closing multiple plants across the U.S., triggering job losses, price hikes, and local economic shifts. How will these changes reshape the American beverage landscape? Since early 2024, Coca-Cola has initiated closures of several plants across the United States, directly impacting hundreds of jobs. Notably, the company confirmed the permanent shutdown of its bottling facility in American Canyon, California, with the main closure phase beginning on June 30, 2025, affecting 135 employees. Additionally, layoffs at the Modesto, California facility will result in 101 job losses by January 2025. The impact on local communities is significant. Towns that have long depended on these facilities for employment and economic stability are now facing uncertainty. Workers, particularly those over 50, may find it challenging to secure new employment opportunities, leading to potential financial hardships and increased reliance on social support systems. The closures also affect local businesses that provided services to the plants and their employees, amplifying the economic ripple effect. In March 2025, the U.S. government imposed a 25% tariff on imported aluminum, which was further increased to 50% in June 2025. These tariffs have escalated production costs for beverage companies, including Coca-Cola, which relies on aluminum for its cans. The increased costs are prompting the company to consider shifting more of its packaging from aluminum cans to PET plastic bottles to mitigate expenses. For consumers, these changes may lead to higher prices for canned beverages, while the exact price increase per can is estimated to be about 1 cent. The cumulative effect could make popular drinks less affordable for some households, especially those with fixed incomes or tight budgets. Additionally, the shift from aluminum to plastic packaging raises environmental concerns, as plastic bottles have a higher environmental footprint, potentially conflicting with consumer preferences for sustainable packaging. The closures and operational changes are affecting several states. California, the shutdown of the American Canyon plant and layoffs in Modesto are impacting local employment and economies. Georgia, as the headquarters of Coca-Cola, any corporate restructuring could have ripple effects on the state's economy, particularly in Atlanta. Texas and Ohio, while specific closures have not been confirmed, these states may experience indirect effects due to supply chain adjustments and potential future operational changes. Communities in these states are bracing for economic challenges, including job losses and decreased local spending, which could affect small businesses and public services. The uncertainty surrounding Coca-Cola's operations may also deter future investments in these regions, potentially leading to longer-term economic stagnation. Canada is fast becoming the new trade favorite across Asia, Europe, and beyond. While U.S. tariffs are reshaping retail and jobs at home, is America losing its edge without even noticing? While the U.S. imposes tariffs as high as 50% on steel, aluminum, and cars, Canada has quietly signed new trade pacts with Asia, Latin America, the EU, and India. Its latest agreement with Indonesia slashes 90% of bilateral tariffs, boosting sectors like electronics, minerals, AI, and advanced manufacturing. Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, backed by a $2.3 billion initiative, is rapidly expanding its presence in the region and attracting new investment. As Canada strengthens its global partnerships, the U.S. risks losing key trade leadership. This could mean fewer job opportunities, less investment, and higher consumer prices as American influence in global markets wanes. A sharp 125% tariff on goods from China has hit U.S. retailers hard. Walmart, Target, and Dollar Tree have raised prices on essentials like electronics, toys, coffee, and flowers. According to Yale's Budget Lab, American families now spend an extra $4,900 per year just to maintain their standard of living due to rising costs from tariffs. Walmart appealed to the White House for relief, but was denied. Meanwhile, Amazon Canada is thriving with lower prices and faster delivery to U.S. shoppers. Consumers face rising costs and product shortages, while retail workers deal with job cuts. As cross-border shopping from Canada increases, domestic distribution networks face serious disruption. Canada is emerging as a central player in the global supply chain through new deals with the EU, Japan, Australia, and India. Ottawa-based corporations have voiced concerns over U.S. isolationism, stating, "We cannot let the U.S. self-destruct and drag us down." Canada is also ramping up capabilities in battery metals, rare earth minerals, and clean energy, drawing manufacturing orders and capital away from the U.S. High-tech job growth is shifting northward. American workers in steel, automotive, and battery sectors face job insecurity, while U.S. firms increasingly rely on imports from Canada, rather than serving foreign markets directly. Analysts warn that unless U.S. trade policy changes course, the economy could face a triple threat: high prices, supply shortages, and rising unemployment. Canada's growing web of trade alliances is creating a parallel system that excludes the U.S., attracting international businesses seeking stability and predictability. Workers, small businesses, and the middle class are bearing the costs of current trade strategies. Without adjustments, America could fall behind as global commerce evolves without it. International visits to the U.S. have plunged, triggering billions in economic losses and warning signs for the summer season. Could easing entry rules and marketing campaigns reverse the trend? International arrivals to the U.S. dropped 14% in March 2025 compared to March 2024. Canada down 26% via land and 14% via air. Western Europe down 17%. South America down 10%. This contraction follows tougher visa screenings and stricter border enforcement. This slump hits U.S. tourism businesses hard, especially in New York, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, leading to reduced bookings in hotels, restaurants, car rentals, and theme parks. Seasonal layoffs and slower summer hiring are already being felt in local economies that rely on foreign visitors. Lower foot traffic also means shops and small businesses on main streets struggle to meet monthly targets. And local tour operators may need to cut hours or staff. Some communities, particularly those reliant on tourism, are experiencing a downturn in neighborhood events, festivals, and local sponsorships, further reducing the vibrancy of public life. Travel advisories from Germany, Japan, and Australia now reference invasive phone checks, detailed interviews, and even deportation risks, raising alarm among potential tourists. Meanwhile, cross-border traffic from Canada has dropped between 20 and 35%, and Canadian airlines have trimmed routes due to sagging demand. Fear of intrusive border measures reduces international tourism, infrastructure usage, and revenue. U.S. service and transport workers face fewer shifts. Communities near border crossings see slower commercial activity. Businesses dependent on tourism, forecasting face revenue and staffing uncertainty. Local restaurants and taxi drivers, who rely heavily on the spending of international guests, are seeing fewer tips and longer idle hours. Cultural venues and event organizers, hoping for a post-pandemic revival, now contend with fewer bookings and less diverse audiences, limiting community engagement and potential growth. The World Travel and Tourism Council projects a $12.5 billion drop in international visitor spending in 2025, from $181 billion in 2024 to just under $169 billion. Oxford Economics forecasts an 8.7% decline in arrivals, translating to around $8.5 billion in lost tourism revenue. Tourism Economics warns that Canadian travel could cut $2 to $6 billion and about 14,000 U.S. jobs. Local tax revenue and public service funding suffer as tourism-generated income shrinks. School budgets, road maintenance, and public transportation systems may face cutbacks or tax hikes to compensate. Job losses in tourism sectors ripple into related industries like retail and hospitality. States like California and Florida, along with major cities, have launched marketing campaigns promoting a welcoming U.S. image and travel discounts. Airlines and hotels are offering bundled deals to attract early summer bookings. While still emerging, these initiatives aim to stem the downturn. If successful, these efforts could fuel summer travel, helping tourism-dependent regions rebound in jobs and revenue. If delayed or weak, dependence on summer tourism may see continued unemployment, prompting budget shortfalls and possible reductions in public services. Container and car shipments into U.S. ports are facing cancellations and delays, stirring concern for consumers and workers. Could this be the early sign of a broader U.S. supply crisis? Container carriers have scrapped up to 30% of trans-Pacific sailings, cutting 20% of capacity to West Coast ports in April and 24% in early May. Major hubs, Los Angeles, Long Beach, Oakland, saw vessel arrivals drop nearly 50%, from about 12 ships to just 6 per day. Globally, carriers withdrew capacity, equivalent to 1.3 million 40-foot containers, annually, equal to 578,115 TEU. Consumers across the U.S. will notice more empty shelves in major stores, as shipments of popular products are delayed or even canceled. This is especially concerning for families waiting for essential appliances or seasonal goods. Businesses, too, are struggling to maintain normal inventory, forcing some to increase prices to cover rising costs. The logistics industry, already strained, sees hundreds of port workers and truck drivers forced to accept fewer shifts, and many risk being temporarily laid off. For communities dependent on port activity, the slowdown leads to reduced local business, threatening restaurants, shops, and service providers who rely on daily port operations for a stable income. An estimated 37,000 vehicles, including Audi and VW models, remain stranded at U.S. ports since April 2nd, halted by a newly imposed 25% U.S. import tariff. Automakers like GM have paused shipments and are redirecting vehicles into bonded yards to avoid tariffs. Customers looking to purchase new vehicles face long waits or are pushed to buy older models at a premium. The shortage is not limited to luxury brands. Mainstream dealerships also struggle to receive regular inventory, making it harder for families to access affordable transportation. Price increases may push some buyers out of the market altogether. For dealership employees, uncertainty grows as managers cut back hours or postpone new hires. Those working in car transport, detailing, or parts supply feel the ripple effect. Facing shrinking paychecks, the lack of fresh stock could even force some local dealerships to close, impacting local economies and causing job losses beyond the auto industry. Beyond containers and cars, bulk goods and agricultural exports have been blocked. U.S. soybean shipments to China plunged 41% year-on-year in Q1 2025. Brazil now supplies around 70% of China's soybeans, while U.S. share dropped to 28% in 2022/2023. Without a deeper trade deal, U.S. exports may shrink to 1.5 billion bushels, down from 1.865 billion, risking price declines to $9 per bushel. Higher costs for food, electronics, and auto parts. Businesses pay extra for storage or cancel orders altogether. Logistics slowdowns hurt workers' incomes in retail, trucking, and warehousing. Despite a 90-day tariff truce, reducing U.S. duties on Chinese imports to 30% from 145%, blank sailings remain high, up to 28% cancellations, and ports stay quiet. No definitive relief or federal plan appears, and regional leaders are pressing for action. Household budgets tighten as prices rise. Middle-class families may cut spending further. Economic recovery slows, reducing room for local support programs and job creation. Recent trade actions between the U.S. and Canada spark ripple effects across North America. Will new tariffs and energy threats from Canada make Americans pay more for electricity, groceries, and even risk losing jobs? In 2018, the U.S. imposed tariffs of 25% on Canadian steel and 10% on aluminum, sparking immediate backlash from Canadian producers. According to CNBC, these tariffs cost the Canadian metal industry over $300 million in the first 6 months and triggered retaliatory duties on U.S. exports. While there is no recent confirmed move to 50% tariffs, the trade tension remains high, leading to canceled contracts and economic strain across borders. The state of Ontario, Canada's industrial hub, warned that continued tariff disputes could threaten energy exports to U.S. border states. The American Public Power Association notes that states like Michigan, New York, and Ohio receive nearly 20% of their imported electricity from Canada. A disruption could raise electricity bills for millions of residents and industries by up to 15%. Everyday Americans may also see prices rise on aluminum-based goods, from soda cans to cars, as manufacturers face higher raw material costs. Ontario, responsible for 38% of Canada's GDP, is accelerating efforts to reduce reliance on the U.S. by investing in domestic technology and energy production. CBC reports that Ontario's government is prioritizing local businesses for major infrastructure projects and exploring new partnerships with Asian suppliers. For U.S. businesses, this pivot means significant losses. The U.S. exported over $69 billion in services to Canada in 2023. If bidding on public projects becomes restricted, American firms in engineering, IT, and construction could see contract volumes drop sharply. This loss would be felt most in regions that traditionally rely on cross-border business and government contracts. In late 2024, Canada finalized a free trade agreement with Indonesia under the SEIPA framework, opening broader access to key materials for electric vehicle batteries. The Canadian government also pledged over 2.3 billion Canadian dollars, about 1.7 billion US dollars, for its Indo-Pacific strategy, focusing on reducing dependence on US ports. As global supply chains adjust, American logistics firms face heightened competition and fewer shipments. According to UNCTAD, foreign direct investment in Canada rose by 5% in 2023, while FDI in the U.S. declined by 3%. These changes pressure American exporters and investors, driving up import prices for U.S. consumers and encouraging companies to seek new markets abroad, potentially resulting in fewer job opportunities in the logistics and trade sectors. Freight disruptions have hit the U.S. hard. In 2023, blank sailings accounted for about 20% of trans-Pacific shipping routes, a historical high. According to Drury, in early 2024, UPS announced cuts of 12,000 jobs due to lower package volumes, while FedEx reported significant workforce reductions as well. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach saw a 15% decrease in container throughput in the first quarter of 2024. For American families, the result is empty shelves and higher prices at supermarkets and home improvement stores. The combination of supply shortages and inflation means that everyday goods, from electronics to canned food, are not only more expensive, but also harder to find. Households across the country are feeling the strain as disruptions to the supply chain cascade through the entire economy. Luxury car imports and steel tariffs are reshaping U.S. auto options this summer. What's behind these shifts, and how will they touch American drivers? Porsche has categorically stated it will not move any part of its production, including final assembly, to the United States, refuting recent Bloomberg speculation. A company spokesperson told Reuters, Porsche has no plans to shift any part of its production process to the U.S. With no U.S. production, all Porsche models imported to the U.S. continue to incur 25% tariffs on passenger vehicles, per the U.S. Department of Commerce, under 2025 import rules. This adds thousands of dollars per vehicle. As a result, American customers face higher prices, fewer available models, and local dealerships may struggle to stock current inventory, potentially affecting service networks and jobs tied to luxury imports. For enthusiasts, this means waiting longer for special orders, potentially missing out on limited editions, and feeling the pressure of higher financing costs. Even maintenance and spare parts could become more expensive, impacting ownership experience and satisfaction for U.S. Porsche fans. Mercedes-Benz CEO Ola Källenius has proposed a tariff offset mechanism, suggesting parity in import volumes between U.S. and EU-produced vehicles to avoid tariffs. He is reportedly in discussions with U.S. and EU officials, Bloomberg says. If accepted, this plan could stabilize prices for Mercedes and other European luxury cars in the U.S., preserving consumer choice and affordability. Failure could lead to import delays, price spikes, and potential withdrawal of high-end models, causing ripple effects through luxury dealerships and affecting their workforce. American consumers might also see fewer upgrades or new models each year, with automakers hesitating to invest in the U.S. market. For local mechanics and parts suppliers, fewer imports could mean less business, shrinking options for customers seeking repairs and customizations. Regional economies that benefit from luxury auto sales may experience reduced growth. Germany's Federal Statistical Office, Destatis, reports that exports to the U.S. fell 10.5% in April 2025, reaching 13.0 billion euros, the lowest since October 2024. Overall, German exports in April were 131.1 billion euros, down 1.7% month-on-month. This contraction in German steel, auto, and industrial exports is beginning to tighten supply chains. U.S. consumers may soon experience longer wait times for new and used European brand cars, as well as higher costs for repairs and auto parts reliant on imported components, impacting both buyers and small auto businesses. On June 5, 2025, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz met President Trump at the White House, agreeing to explore a long-term tariff offset and enhanced U.S.-EU trade cooperation. Their aim: reduce auto tariffs and bolster transatlantic manufacturing ties. Success here could bring steady vehicle pricing, broader selection of imported models, and job stability at U.S. plants tied to German brands. For American families and workers in the automotive sector, this may translate into economic certainty, maintained employment opportunities, and cheaper access to premium European vehicles.